So, they're going to be the story of the trip that we all took, and I hope you enjoy it. We took a lot of photographs. We took a ton of photographs, but it all started out by us flying over. My wife's first cousin had a son who, and the first cousin had passed away a couple of years ago. He was a very well-known, highly regarded glass artist in Italy, in Murano, as was his sister, who also died at around the same time, unconnected. They just both passed away. They're both in their early 60s, and they were both very prominent in the glass world over there, the art glass world. They were part of the Venini family. And my wife's cousin's son was getting married, and he reached out and said, could you come over and come to the wedding? Because he didn't really have anybody left. He came from a smallish family. And we went, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and a couple of their kids managed to get over there, and we all went over, and we had a wonderful time, and it was a beautiful place. The bride's family, as I mentioned in one of the videos on Patreon, was that the bride's family had, hold on, let me turn that down a little, it's too loud. Hold on, there we go. I didn't want the air conditioning to overwhelm. It's warm here today. She rented the famous Kronenhof Hotel in in Switzerland rather, in St. Moritz. And the Kronenhof, if you're not familiar with it, we're going to show you some photos of it just as a little background. It was rated by TripAdvisor as the finest hotel in the world, which I didn't know until we were there. And they rented the place for 277 guests. For several days of parties and whatnot. So what you're going to see at the beginning is we started out, and we went, the first day we flew into Milan, we drove up to Lake Como, and we rented a nice hotel right on the lake there for just one night. As you can see, the weather wasn't particularly nice. It rained, it was cloudy most of the time we're there. We had a little sunlight popped out at the end of the first day. So we went out to a local piazza next door and had a couple of drinks. Then we went back to the hotel, next door to the hotel, where there was a very nice restaurant. But this was the view from the room looking out on the lake, and as you can see, there's a ferry there that goes across the lake fairly regularly. It's a fairly active ferry crossing. And the next day we took off. We went up from Lake Como to St. Moritz, which the weather cleared up. It was starting to clear up. It was still rainy, but it was good enough to drive, of course. And you go up to over 6,000 feet, as I recall, up to St. Moritz. And we checked into the Kronenhof, and it's only an hour and change drive. It's a very easy drive. It's all in the same region, right, very close to northern Italy. And this was the hotel. It was a beautiful Belle Epoque facility. It was built in the 1890s. It's had a couple of owners, but not a lot of owners. And the most recent owner has really gone into the place. They brought in French designers who did all the rooms over. The rooms were spectacularly beautiful. And here you can see some of the views. This is one of these views. This view is from the main lobby, sort of a social room, a living room, if you would, in the first floor, looking out on the Alps. And as you can see, it's really an astonishingly beautiful view. But all of Switzerland, it is true what they say about driving into Switzerland. It's one of the most beautiful drives you'll ever take in a car in your life, especially up into St. Moritz. It's absolutely, I get it. I understand why people talk about the driving through the Swiss Alps is so beautiful. It is one of the great automotive drives in the world. And we were here, and then the first night, the bride's family had this. They had us all come over. They had a fleet of Mercedes Benzes picked everybody up, all 277 people, and drove them up to the bride's mother's house, which she had a private estate in St. Moritz. And we went here, and they had these giant tents set up. Now, it was only about 50 degrees out. It was a very cool night, and we were all wondering if we were going to freeze to death. Well, no. They had these massive outdoor heaters, and underneath this tent, there were nearly 300 people, not including the caterers and the bartenders and the musicians and everything else that was going on. They had these giant heaters which brought the temperature up underneath the tent in this room where all the people are. It was about 75 degrees there. It was extremely comfortable. It was unbelievably comfortable. And that went late. We were there until midnight. A lot of drinking, a lot of good food, a lot of friends, a lot of people we had never met before who were friends of the bride, so that was a lot of fun. And we got to get reacquainted with a lot of the mutual friends. The bride's family is very interested in the glass art, so they had a long-term relationship with Alice, my wife's cousin Alessandro, and her other cousin Laura de Santillana. And there's a foundation involved. There's all kinds of stuff going on. There's a lot of connections, and through those connections, my wife's cousin's son met his bride, and they've been together dating for a long time. She went to school in America. She was a Brown graduate, as a matter of fact, from here in New England, and they had a wild love relationship, and they got married. They're both in their 30s, and so there we are. We went to the party, and then at the end of the night, everybody was exhausted, and thank goodness nobody was driving. We all got driven back in this fleet of Mercedes they had for all the guests. I don't know how many cars they had. It looked like a scene out of a movie. And they brought us back, went to bed. Next morning, we got up. Now, the Kronenhof, as you're going to see in a second, has one of the most beautiful dining rooms I've ever seen in my life. It's a Belle Epoque dining room over the top. And this is the room. And they have a continental breakfast there that's mind-boggling. And it's sort of a U-shaped long table that has everything on it you could possibly imagine for a breakfast, from all kinds of meats, cold cuts. There's 4 or 5 different types of smoked salmon, maybe 30 different types of rolls, a cheese cart, juices, whatever you want. They have it, and if it's not out there, they'll make it for you. Plus, around you have your option of about 10 different types of coffee. So everything was right there. The staff was phenomenal, and so forth. And we met a very interesting fellow. Our first morning there, we were eating. My wife and I were the first ones actually to go to the dining room because we were early risers, so we got up. And a very interesting man came and sat with us. He's the editor and publisher of Condé Nast, and he's the editor of Vogue. And we had breakfast with him, and a very nice man. And we spent some time having cocktails with him later during the day. And then during Saturday, they had the wedding. And the wedding was held on the top of a mountain near the hotel, not too far away. And again, the bride's family went over the top. And the mother of the bride had a helicopter fly a tent up onto this mountain so they could have the wedding ceremony up there no matter what the weather was. And they brought in about 20 or 30 of these horn players who came in and like a Ricola ad playing the Swiss horns. And one of the songs they played was "Here Comes the Bride." And it was quite a grand thing. And they got all the guests up there on a train. They hired a private train, and they rented it, and everybody went up, and they had box lunches and snacks and treats and drinks and stuff up on the mountain. They had the wedding ceremony. And then everybody came back down, and then later on that day, we had the wedding dinner again in this beautiful dining room, hundreds and hundreds of people, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun for me because they have somebody that arranges the seating, and there were 30 or 40 dining tables in there with 8 or 10 people at each table, that sort of thing. And some of the tables had 6 people at them, so it varied on the size and where the tables were. And I just coincidentally ended up sitting with the bride's family, the bride's mother and her brother, and so forth. And I got to know them a little bit, and they were awfully nice people. And some friends of my wife were sitting at the table as well, so we all had a great time. The wife of one of her best friends from Italy, going back many years, was sitting with us. And they had all kinds of music and dedications and speeches. My wife got up and spoke with her sister about what it was, about how sad it was that Alessandro, the father of the groom, couldn't be there because of his passing and so forth. And then they had the music, and they had a lot of dancing going on. And here's a clip. It was a Jewish. It was half of the family is Jewish, half of the family is Gentile. So they had a little bit of everything, and they had a really, really good band. I've seen some good bands at weddings. I've seen some really great bands. This band was over the top. This band could play everything from Miles Davis to any type of American blues you could imagine, to Austrian and Swiss and Alpine folk songs. They could play symphony. They play everything. They were the most. They reminded me of the Wrecking Crew, the famous recording groups out in California during the '60s. They were like that. They were just that versatile. And I actually met the band leader over a drink later, because he was taking a break and I was having a drink, and we got chatting. And I said, "How long have you been doing this?" And he said he'd been playing music since he was 7 years old. And the man is now in his 60s, and he was a pro. So the music was great, the dancing was great, the energy was really, really good. Everybody had a fabulous time, and then the party ended. The latest 2 nights I've had in a row. We were up until 1 o'clock in the morning at the wedding, and apparently they had, for the younger people, the people in their 20s, the hotel had turned a lower floor in the building into a discotheque, and brought in all kinds of DJs and special lighting effects and all this other crazy stuff down in the basement. And more drinking, of course, and more champagne. And I guess that wrapped up at about 6 o'clock in the morning, because when we went to have breakfast the next day, we went down late. We went down at 8 o'clock to have breakfast. That's late for us. And there was nobody in there eating. Not one person. Everybody was still in bed. At any rate, we left from there. And they check you out in a very nice way, and we left the Kronenhof. They went and got the car, of course, so they put all our luggage in it and did all that, and they put treats in the car for your drive, chocolates and fresh spring water and beautiful bottles and all that. It's a very elegant hotel. And then we drove down from there to back down to Lake Maggiore, which is from the new place we're going, was only about 40 minutes away. And we got there at around, I guess it was around noon or so. The sun was out, it was beautiful, and this is where we were staying. And this is a wonderful little hotel right on Lake Maggiore, and across the street from us is actually the ferry landing, because there are a bunch of islands out on Lake Maggiore where you can go out, the old summer estates and so forth. And we checked into the hotel and sort of settled in, went out, wandered around a little bit in the area, took a walk along. They have a sort of a lido where you can take a walk along the shore, like a cliff walk almost, where you can walk along the shore and see it. It's beautifully done. It's all landscaped. So Lake Maggiore is so pretty and beautiful, and it's a giant lake. It's a massive, massive lake. People don't realize how big that lake is. It's, I don't know how long, 30 miles, 40 miles long, 50 miles. It's a big lake. Anyway, we did that, and that night we had dinner right across the street from the hotel in this great little waterfront restaurant. It's right on the lake. They have a deck, and it's puccini mushroom season. So we had puccini mushrooms and a wonderful dinner there, and went to bed. And then the next day we got up and we moved around a bit. We went downtown to check it out. We went up to Orte, which is another town on the northern part, and so forth. And again, had more great meals, and bought a few gifts for things for people. And then we, what else did we do that day? Well, we did a lot of things, I guess. We sort of moved around a lot. We got to know the town a bit. It rained the first day we got there a little bit, not bad. And then it was sunny the rest of the week. And they had been predicting rain for the whole week, so we were kind of happy that wasn't the case. At any rate, we then drove up to the northern part of the lake one afternoon, and we went to this place. This is Orte. Well, I think that's Orte, isn't it? Yeah. It overlooks the Swiss Alps. It's this beautiful view on the lake again. The whole trip is centered around the lake. Everything there is around the lake. That's how the society developed, because the lake was a major area of focus. There was a big fishing industry on this lake.
The water here, I suspect, is pretty crisp.
So it was quite beautiful. And for that, and then there were all kinds of restaurants all along it. We went up and we went to this very nice area with a beach. We had a nice cup of espresso, and took in the sights, took some
nice
videos of it.
beach.
And again, looking up from here, the Swiss Alps are right we're at the top of the lake at this point, and there it is. It's very, very pretty. And then we went and visited another day. We stopped in with my wife has some old friends from Venice that have a home on a smaller lake nearby, and we went over there and spent part of the day. And then we all went out to dinner in the village where she lived on a very, very beautiful lake, and on her lake. And then we went back, and the next day we went to the Botanical Gardens. Now, the Botanical Gardens on Lake Maggiore are spectacular, and I can't remember. It's like Tortolano. I'm gonna put Tortolana. I'm gonna put it up on the screen here. You'll see it. Anyway, it was a garden that was established in the early 20th century on an old estate with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres of land, and it's one of the most beautiful botanical gardens I've ever seen in my life. And the place was just filled with horticulturalists and people interested in rare plants, because it has this massive series of walkways, as we're going to see, that go through the whole place. And you can just walk. You pay a little money to go in. It's not expensive, I think. And there's a very nice restaurant at the beginning when you go in, and they have very nice food, sandwiches, and everything you want. Parking is free, and I think it was $14 a person to go in there, or 14 euros a person to go in. But you can spend as much time as you want. You can make a day of it. You can bring a picnic, and so forth. And there were lots of walkways, but the variety of plants and flowers, and the meticulousness with which this place is maintained. Because when the founder of it, his name was Antonio McKetchin. His mother was Italian, or his mother was Italian. His father was Scottish, apparently. He left the estate to the government as a gift to the country in 1963 when he passed away, and they have maintained it ever since. And it is absolutely gorgeous. And if you ever get the chance to go see this place, I would urge you to do it. Plan on spending 4 or 5 hours there. It is amazing. And what you see are extremely rare plants that are fully mature, that they're big. These aren't small plants. These are plants that have been growing there for upwards of 100 years. So they're very, very large specimens and wide ranging. And the original mansion is right there, right here. Is still in the, still part of it. But it's hundreds of acres, and as you walk up through it, you sort of wend your way up this mountainside overlooking Lake Maggiore in the background. One of the things we did see was there were these warning signs about you may hear high wind warnings, and we may have to evacuate. At this part of the lake, they get very high winds, apparently, and we felt a little of it coming out at the end. It really was gusting. I thought, wow, now I understand the signs. But at any rate, as you walk up through it, you go up through they have these groves of all kinds of azaleas and begonia gardens and all kinds of flower beds. And then you get to this midsection tier where they have koi ponds and lotus ponds and waterfalls and beds and beds and beds and beds of color, flowers everywhere. And then all of it is in a framework of stone walkways underneath canopies and arches and stuff, and all done on a very large scale. And as you climb up higher and higher, the vista behind you expands outward, and you can see further and further into the across the lake and up into the mountains and so forth. It's just an astonishing thing. And then there's a very pleasant little walk down, and you go out. But the imagery here from this place was just spectacular. It was just absolutely spectacular. And then the next day we toured around. We visited with some more friends, and then Carlo Santi came, who's of course we've talked about him. I've known Carlo through emails and phone conversations now for a decade. He started the Marco Polo auction house, and I told him we were coming over, and he and his girlfriend, fiance, came and visited us for lunch. And we made it after. We ended up sitting in a restaurant. One restaurant we were sitting in, we had dinner, or had lunch there. We stayed so long that the people actually left us there. It was an open piazza type restaurant, and they left the piazza because once lunch was over, and they left. We just sat there talking, and then we went down to another place, down to another bar, in the village of Stadzi, and had a few more drinks, and had a wonderful day. Had a wonderful day catching up with Carlo, and we'll be talking a little bit about something he's got coming up in a future video that's going to be in his next sale. That may be the finest Korean bronze I've ever seen. Came from an old Italian collection. It's been scientifically tested, examined to death, and all that. It's all certified, and it is a phenomenal bronze. So we'll get to that another day. But at any rate, we did that, and then the last few days we sort of poked around and relaxed and went for walks and went into the different towns and villages. There are many of them over there that are absolutely wonderful, great little untouched villages. The only problem we ever had was that Google kept taking us to these rather weird ways to get places, because it doesn't understand how narrow the roads are in Italy. So keep that in mind if you ever go there and you use Google. It took us up one road that the mirrors of the car were less than, we had to go about a half a mile an hour, because the buildings were within an inch of the mirrors on both sides of the car. It wasn't the road that people normally use. It was a sort of an abandoned access road that Google picked up as being a legitimate way to go places. Once we got to the place we were trying to get to, we realized, oh, well, there's the main road over here. It's on the other side, and it should have brought us in that way, but it picked most direct route, I guess, as the crow flies, and it was up this series of alleyways for a mile. It was pretty weird. Anyway, that was it. And then the final days, we ate, had dinner a few times down along the on another part of the lake in a little village next to Stadzi that is absolutely beautiful. Had wonderful, wonderful meals. As you can see, the views are great. And it was just a lovely trip overall. I don't know what else to tell you about it. The people were great. The wedding was a smashing success. The bride and groom were so happy with it. Hopefully they're coming over sometime in the next 6 months or so, along with a few other people that were there. We're going to have them up to New Hampshire to stay. And the bride and the groom, I think, are coming to stay when they get back over to the U.S. They live in London most of the time, but they are coming over here, and they're going to be coming up to stay with us for a couple of days, hopefully, sometime in the next 5 or 6 months, so we can spend some time getting caught up with how they're doing and all that. So it was a very happy occasion. It was a happy trip. The flight was easy. We flew Delta, and we like Delta Airlines a great deal. We think they do a really good job, and they did. We actually hung out with one of the pilots a little bit before and after the flight, which was sort of a fun story. But anyway, we had a good time. And we got home, and some friends picked us up at the airport. Some good neighbors of ours came and got us, and we were home, back to Buck, and here we are. And we've been back now for, well, not quite a week, I guess, but we've been back for a few days. So anyway, that's it for the trip. I hope you enjoyed it. All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.